Right now, we have a breaking news update for you live right here on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. Tampa Police Chief Lee Burkhaw sharing more details about the death of a man who investigators say was handcuffed, in custody too, then tased while running away. Let's go ahead and listen in on this.
This is still an open investigation. I'll provide you with details and will release some of the body-worn camera footage. Joining me today is our State Attorney, Susie Lopez, and Brandon Shealy, the FDLE Assistant Special Agent in charge. As standard procedure, they lead any use of force or in custody death investigation. Let me provide you with a timeline. Around 1 o'clock yesterday, we had an armed auto burglary occur in the 100 block of South Havana. The owner saw a white male in his driver's seat of his car and confronted him. The suspect left carrying a bag and a skateboard. The owner realized his backpack was missing, which had contained a loaded 9mm. He made the report with the police department, and we put out a BOLO. Officers were investigating that armed auto burglary and were scouring the neighborhood and received some tips that potentially a person of interest was possibly in a park in the downtown area. Just after 8 o'clock, officers were on proactive patrol downtown, looking in the parks, and they arrived at McDill Park. They saw the subject, who they believed could be this auto burglary suspect. They went up to him and asked him for his identification, and when he went to pull out his identification, he pulled out some crack cocaine. He was detained and arrested on the narcotic charges. He was handcuffed and placed on the bench there in the park while the officers continued their investigation. The officers were speaking with him, a very cordial conversation that they had. At some point, the suspect made some concerning statements, said that I'm not going to go back to jail, and today could be the day that I die. The officers provided reassurance, encouragement, even as they investigated it. And at this point, the suspect stood up and took off running. The officers at this point were in fear for what could face the community members out there or other people, because we had an armed, potentially, we had already taken a knife off of him, and a potentially armed suspect for felony charges who was now escaping custody. And their concern was for the community members, so they used their taser. And unfortunately, right at that time, there was a car coming on Ashley Street that struck him. And he was hit. The officers immediately saw this, took his handcuffs off, and began life-saving measures and CPR, but unfortunately, the suspect did not survive. The driver of the vehicle stayed and remained cooperative. FDLE, again, is working this case, and the state attorney will review all the findings, and our traffic homicide team is also assisting in the investigation. In closing, I want to say that every officer works for an outcome that ensures the safety and well-being of all, and the sanctity of human life is in our policy. It's unfortunate what happened today, but I am proud of our officers and their proactive police work that they're doing in keeping our community safe. None of the officers involved in this investigation have any history of use of force discipline. And in addition to that, our Professional Standards Bureau will review any potential administrative violations. The suspect involved is 35-year-old Zachary Groff. He's a white male, and his date of birth is August 29th, 1990. Be happy to take any questions. No, absolutely. Our policy talks about handcuffed individuals, and it talks about fleeing suspects, and it talks about exigent circumstances. And in this case, we have, like I said before, we have a felon who was in custody that we had already removed the knife, who had made threats to harm himself and harm others, and was fleeing. And those officers did what they did to protect the community. But a review of all that will be part of the investigation.
When the suspect was handcuffed, was it in front, back?
In the back.
Okay, and he fled after.
Correct.
As far as the officer, is there any administrative leave while this is an investigation, or is he still on the force?
So we have 4 officers that we placed on administrative review as part of the investigation, which is standard protocol.
Did you determine whether he was in fact the person who burglarized the car earlier in the day?
Again, that's part of the ongoing investigation.
And you sort of discussed the story, but how hard did the officers try to not have to use lethal force? It sounds like they just had a discussion with him, then used a taser.
Well, again, a taser is, the intention is non-lethal force, and nobody could foresee what was going to happen. This was 8:15 at night, and if you're familiar with this area on Ashley, it's a dead end. There's typically no traffic there. It's not something that they were expecting, and it was unfortunate, the outcome, but again, it was not the outcome that anybody wanted.
I'm not sure if you can speak to this, but because his hands were behind his back, I know it's difficult to run. Would it have been something where they could have tried to get him after he ran, or did they tase him for his safety because he was going into line?
Again, we'd have to get in the heads of all the officers, but their intentions, the right intentions are there. You know, you have right now that somebody was suspected in an armed auto burglary. They had already recovered a knife off of him. He had made threats to harm himself and harm others, and now he was escaping from police custody. So they're making split-second decisions out there to keep our community safe.
Did they find the gun as well?
That's still part of the investigation. Yep.
Did you say the policy says you can use a taser once?
Again, the policy, when you look at it, the intent of the policy is it talks about exigent circumstances. Typically, we don't do that with somebody that's handcuffed, but that is more of like if somebody's there with you. You know, it's not intended to be like an excessive force where somebody's there, but this person's fleeing. So there's exigent circumstances, and that's part of our review and our administrative review of the policy. Our use of force, high liability policies, we review on an annual basis. I'd have to research it to see when the last time it was updated. All right. Thank you.
All right, just listening in there to Police Chief Lee Burkaw, Tampa Police Chief. This incident happening near North Ashley Drive and East Whitting Street. You see it right there on the map. Just after 8 o'clock last night, some new details that we just gathered this afternoon. This investigation is still open. They are releasing some of the body cam video connected to this incident, but they were pursuing an armed burglary suspect that turned out to be Zachary Groff, a 33-year-old man. Police eventually caught up to him, asked him for some identification. They say that is when Mr. Groff pulled out crack cocaine. He also told police he was not going back to jail, even said, "Today may be the day I die." They had already confiscated a knife. Groff took off running, and that is when they used a taser. He collided with a vehicle at that time. Officers tried to administer aid, but eventually Mr. Groff died, the 33-year-old man we're talking about. Again, he was in handcuffs at the time of this incident. Police say he pulled away, ran off. One officer used that taser. The suspect fell into the road, into that oncoming traffic. We're told that driver is cooperating with the investigation. That vehicle hit and killed Mr. Groff, 33-year-old Zachary Groff. Police telling us, again, the driver cooperating. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement also taking over this investigation since the death happened while in police custody. And you know, we have a crew out there on the scene. We're talking to neighbors in the area. We'll bring you more details. Bring all that to you live tonight at 5 o'clock with the latest.